Dear ladies and gentlemen, dear speakers, dear participants, good morning. Let me welcome you to the Regional Challenge Fund national event to announce the first call for expressions of interest in Albania. My name is 𝗕𝗪𝗏𝗂𝗏. I'm part of the Regional Challenge Fund Management Unit as a regional coordinator for Albania, Kosovo, and North Macedonia, and I'll be the moderator of this webinar. For this webinar to be a flawless and pleasant experience, we also have our technical support team with us, and I'll go straight to them now to share some recommendations. Alexandra, please.
Thank you, Mr. Vassili. Dear attendees, welcome to the launch event of the Regional Challenge Fund in Western Balkan 6 in Albania. The webinar provides interpretation in Albanian. Click the interpretation icon, globus icon, on the Zoom toolbar to activate simultaneous translation. Choose the language you want to hear, that is Albanian audio channel, and you may mute the original sound with the mute original audio button in the language menu. You may ask questions in the chat or Q&A box. To ask a question in the chat, choose during the webinar to all panelists and attendees options. The questions will be answered during the Q&A session. If you are experiencing technical difficulties hearing the webinar, please check your audio settings. You may contact technical support via chat or on the email info@rcf-wb6.org. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alexandra. You heard about the chat and Q&A option, so feel free to use it. We'll try to address some of your questions related to the process of submitting the expression of interest, eligibility, and selection criteria at the end of the webinar. As our introductory video has shown, the Regional Challenge Fund aims to strengthen the labor market relevance of vocational education and training by funding investments in equipment and infrastructure for training providers that engage in cooperative training activities with partnering enterprises. By working with both VET providers and private companies, it seeks to raise the overall quality of VET and align it with the needs of labor markets in the individual countries throughout the region. This will support increased employability of young people and graduates and contribute to economic growth and regional integration as well. The past few years has marked significant improvement in skills development policies in Albania, as well as the legal and institutional framework governing the sector. The reform of VET in Albania has largely focused on improving attractiveness of the VET system, accessibility, and labor market relevance, while it strives to ensure core principles of autonomy, equality, cooperation, participation, mobility, and diversity. Notwithstanding the potential for the VET system to embody these principles, challenges related to the coherence of legislative framework, clear institutional roles and responsibilities, and in the capacities at all levels have persisted. Collaboration with the private sector has yielded positive results, especially in the area of work-based learning, and in terms of their participation in the management boards of VET providers. Nonetheless, greater private sector participation is needed at all levels of governance. I would like to invite Ms. Dina Sorensen, Deputy Minister of Finance and Economy, to share with us the government initiatives in improving the legislation and tackling the mismatch between private sector needs and VET providers' offer. The word is for you, Dina. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Renato. Dear Judith, Bjorn, Martin, Ines, Mr. Warman, sorry about the name, dear representative of the private sector, be that companies or associations represented here today, school directors, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, I'm really glad to be here for today's launch of the national event related to the Regional Challenge Fund in Albania. Germany, both through 𝗕𝗪𝗏 and GIZ, is one of Albania's largest bilateral partners in support of vocational education and training, and it has a very broad portfolio ranging from direct support to our vet providers, capacity support to our meso-level institutions, as well as significant quality infrastructure investments. As Renato already mentioned, and probably it will be repeated quite extensively today, this is a new initiative targeting the Western Balkan 6 countries. It's a regional challenge fund, and it really aims to support the vet providers, so our schools in this case, which in collaboration with the private sector companies can apply for additional funding to invest in be that equipment, workshop, laboratories, training for teachers and staff at large. It is an initiative that has been a long time in the making. I can recall discussing with Bjorn as far back as 2017 for the first time on this initiative. So it's been quite a while, but I'm really glad to see it off the ground. And it is quite a substantive fund of about 19 million euros, which will be available to our providers. But I'm sure further details will be provided today during today's event, as well as in the follow-up conferences that will target directly our vet schools. Indeed, Renato already mentioned that in the past few years, a great focus has been on vocational education and training and skills development policies at large in Albania, with quite a few steps taken both in terms of legal and institutional consolidation and having a full framework governing the sector. Yes, indeed, the reform has focused very much on improving the attractiveness of vets among young students, secondary students at large, improving accessibility, targeting the most vulnerable, and making vet accessible for them. Today, roughly 18% of all secondary students in Albania attend vocational education and training, up from about 13% in 2013. Data in general show that people that have secondary vocational education are considerably more employable than those that attend general secondary education, highlighting the increased employment opportunities for those in possession of vocational skills. Since 2017, we have developed, with the support of GIZ in this case, a tool to trace the employability of our vet graduates. The most recent data that we have show that roughly 52% of those that graduate from vet schools are in employment 6 months after they exit the world of school, they enter the world of work, and an additional 12% of them are studying and studying and working at the same time, roughly with an employability of around 64%. Now, despite the clear labor market advantage of vet graduates, enrollment in secondary vocational education in the past 2 years has shown a slight dip, simultaneously highlighting the attractiveness challenge that vet has, the need for greater promotion of vocational education and training as a viable path towards employment, but also the impact of the demographic decline. Nonetheless, we have seen an uptick in the number of students from rural areas and from marginalized groups that are attending vocational education and training. Systemic private sector engagement is probably one of the main features of every quality vet system, and probably the largest challenge for the vet system in Albania, whereby a lot of the stakeholders, vet is still seen largely a state responsibility, and with a greater focus on educational attainment rather than responding to labor market needs. Involving the private sector in vet is identified as a priority in our national employment and skills strategy. And a lot of efforts are being made to increase cooperation with the private sector, particularly when it comes to work-based learning. As you are probably aware, in 2020, we also approved a bylaw on work-based learning, which is the first time that we have a bylaw regulating the work-based learning practices between our schools and the private sector. This is a first step. Of course, it will be this experience that will guide future revisions of that bylaw to ensure that work-based learning is not only happening in our school, but more importantly, it's of high quality. Now, at a larger scale, priority areas for us when it comes to increasing private sector participation in VET relate, first of all, it is a must that we develop a conceptual framework and coordinated actions both at the macro, meso, and micro level that makes the private sector an equal, responsible, and informed collaborator in the governance and the implementation of vocational education and training. We're also very much aware of the fact that communication needs to be improved between institutions and the private sector to ensure that qualifications and training programs are in tune with the business reality and they do respond to skills gaps and competence requirements by the private sector. It is also very important that we build the case for private sector engagement in VET. We have seen through the years that to considerable extent in selected VET providers, there is, and the private sector has confirmed a willingness and an interest to engage in organized cooperation patterns. For us as policymakers, it is a must that we create an enabling environment for such practices to thrive and to be upscaled. At a higher level, of course, we plan to make the National VET Council operational in 2021, as well as to start our work on the sector skills committees, having the first 2 sector skills committees established in 2021. I don't think I should take any more of your time in terms of our priorities, but I look forward to this event today. And really invite all our schools, all our providers, and of course the private sector to look at this excellent initiative and make the best use of it and submit as many quality applications as possible. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dina. Thank you very much for the insights on the ministry initiatives, especially with regards to improving the legal framework for supporting work-based learning, and we really look forward to that being implemented in large scale, as you mentioned. And thank you also for expressing your commitment in supporting both companies and schools in achieving their common goal, working together towards improving the quality of VET education. And we really count on your support for that. Thank you. Since the start of cooperation in 1988, Germany has provided more than 1.2 billion euros for Albania, making it one of the most important cooperation countries in Southeastern Europe. For many years now, cooperation has focused on sustainable development, in other words, projects with a lasting impact, with the main goal in helping Albania to move closer to EU standards and structures. I'm glad that Dr. Judith Hoffmann, Head of Development Cooperation in the German Embassy, accepted our invitation for the launch event. Ms. Hoffmann, we would like to hear from you for the German government continuous efforts to support Albania's economic development, and most importantly, for the topic we'll discuss today, your view for the impact of VET education to the economic growth. The word is for you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Dear Dina, dear colleagues, dear participants, very happy to be part of the launch, and a very warm welcome on behalf of the German Embassy here in Albania. Well, it's great to be here and see that finally there is a launch of the Regional Challenge Fund. It's commissioned by the German Federal Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development, 𝗕𝗃𝗍𝗹, and it's executed by the Western Balkans 6th Chamber Investment Forum, a joint initiative of chambers of commerce from the region. Yes, the aim of the RCF is to strengthen vocational education and training in order to make it more labor market relevant, to increase employability and consequently employment of VET graduates in the region. And I think that's, of course, very important for us, very important for Albania. We have on the one side a high young employment and unemployment, sorry, and on the other side, we have a high demand also for skilled labor. So the RCF is an innovative mechanism implemented for the first time in the region, which will support selected consortia of VET providers and private companies through investment support for VET relevant infrastructure, for instance, workshops and equipment, and also technical assistance, as Dinah mentioned already. So I think that's very important to bring really both sides together. Of course, we also talk not only about the existing skills, but also with a look into the future about skills transitions. I mean, I'm just thinking about the green agenda coming up, you know, for the region, but also, you know, in the European Union. And of course, there will be also changing demands and new job profiles that have been that needs to be catered for. So as Dinah said already, Germany is a long-standing development partner of Albania in many sectors, but particularly also for vocational education and training. And it represents an excellent opportunity for skills development, job creation, and better employment prospects. So we do currently support the sector in both technical assistance, but also through financial cooperation through KfW and GIZ. And we observe with great interest all relevant reforms and developments in the sector. And I would really like to thank Dinah for her great leadership in this respect. We have already committed to the government of Albania to continue our support in the VET sector in the future as one of the areas where every positive step in development will significantly impact the opportunities of people and particularly of young people for better employment and skills development. So I'm looking forward to this event and a productive exchange among the participants here. And I'm quite sure that the RCF has a great potential to serve as a catalyst of successful partnerships between the private sector and VET actors. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Hoffmann, for reiterating the continuous German government support for Albania in its economic development and EU integration path. And I believe that not only Germany is one of the biggest bilateral donors in Albania, but also one of the biggest contributors in shaping the country's economic performance by instilling those core work skills and ethics through technical assistance in several projects. Thank you again for the insights and for your time being here today. I'm just looking now at the number of attendees in this event. It's 157 as we speak now. And I believe that most of us here today are familiar with what KfW stands for. The Regional Challenge Fund was commissioned by the German government and delegated to KfW Development Bank for the implementation. Since its founding in 1948, KfW has remained true to its mission of supporting change and encouraging forward-looking ideas in Germany, Europe, and throughout the world. In Albania, KfW is particularly active in the energy sector, in municipal infrastructure, and in the area of sustainable economic development, including promotion of small and medium-sized enterprises, as well as vocational education and training. Mr. Bjorn Tis, KfW Country Director for Albania, is here with us today. Mr. Bjorn, what was the idea behind the Regional Challenge Fund, and what does it bring for the VET providers and business community in Western Balkan countries, and particularly in Albania? We would like to hear a few words from you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much for the nice introduction, and also for the opportunity to speak to all of you today. Indeed, as you mentioned, 𝗕𝗹𝗶 is active in Albania for quite some time now already. So far, we have been mainly focused for the energy sector and the water sector, with an active portfolio at the moment around about 800 million euros. So indeed, we are proud and happy to work together closely with Albania to bring it closer to EU standards and to improve the living conditions. What I think, however, connects both these engagement as well as what we are about to engage in now is, I mean, in the end, these improves framework condition to do what in the end makes economy tick, and that's entrepreneurs finding the necessary inputs and framework conditions to be able to thrive. And this, in the end, also led us to move into the area of that. I take note, Dinah, that it took us a while to come to this launching event, but in the end, at least I try to keep up the commitment that in the end we deliver, and we deliver hopefully an excellent project which we are launching today. Because as the previous speaker mentioned, I mean, that in the end is a tool. That infrastructure is a tool to provide the young people of Albania and the entrepreneurs the skills to thrive in this changing world we are living in, which for sure includes quite a number of challenges. So the name of the project is well chosen, but for sure also a lot of opportunities. And hopefully the RCF can be a tool in this end to provide both the schools, but only together with the entrepreneurs, or the entrepreneurs together with the schools, the opportunity to get support to realize their ideas of improving the teaching or the skills they need. Because, I mean, sometimes it's a bit easy to lament about, yes, you know, we would need these kind of graduates, but we don't find them in the labor market. Now is your opportunity. And that's what I would also like also maybe to encourage all the participants today. I mean, this project also essentially is a challenge to all of you to make use of it, to provide good applications, to work together with the team, with extensive technical assistance in the sector to come up with good proposals and good applications to the Challenge Fund. Challenge the Challenge Fund, make the most out of it with my colleagues, and I mean, it's a regional facility, so there's a certain competitive element to it, and I'm always happy to joke with my colleagues, Albania comes first in the alphabet, but not only there. So I would definitely like to also encourage the participants in the audience to, yeah, I mean, kind of a healthy competition to make sure that Albania really makes the most out of this opportunity to improve the training and the teaching for the young people of Albania, but also with a healthy dose of own interest for the entrepreneurs to get yourself the skills you need to thrive in this world, to make the most of the further progressing EU approximation. So I think opportunities are there. Hopefully the RCF will be another tool to support you on this endeavor. And what I would also like to mention, I mean, it's one tool. At the moment, we are also working closely together with Dinah to maybe also increase further the overall infrastructure development of the MFCs. So there are several initiatives to improve the overall framework conditions, and of course this is only possible indeed, and this I would also like to mention here, with a much improved sector governance. And I mean also that, and there indeed we also see that now the time is really also right to move into this phase of providing this tool to Albania, because it is matched with a professional institutional reform which can hopefully mutually reinforce these kind of things. So I would like to leave it at that, but again, stress this challenge to the audience. I mean, challenge also us now with questions, but really challenge the RCF to help you to strive in this world and to tackle these challenges which we are facing. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bjorn, for the introduction of this truly innovative and one of a kind, we like to call it, financing mechanism, and for encouraging the private sector to benefit from it. And indeed, more efforts need to be placed in the direction of the private sector being involved on an ongoing basis in supporting that education. And that's a fact now. But supporting that education and also that providers in upgrading their curricula to match the fast-paced technological development. So thanks a lot for your words and insights. The Regional Challenge Fund is commissioned, as we mentioned, by the German government to KfW and executed by the Western Balkans Sixth Chamber Investment Forum. Abbreviation for that is CIF. This is a joint initiative of chambers of commerce from WB6 countries. The chambers established this platform of cooperation in 2017 to provide a joint voice to the business community in the region, facilitating inter-business contacts and promoting the region as one investment destination. Albania is being represented in this forum by the Union of Chambers of Commerce and Industry as the national chamber, national umbrella, and it represents 12 local chambers and the Albanian enterprises that are represented by these chambers on both national and international level. The union represents the interests of the business community and contributes in their progress and economic development. Today we have here with us Ms. Ines Vučestepa, who will share with us the importance and the expected impact of the Regional Challenge Fund in strengthening the cooperation between the companies and the vet schools, aimed at decreasing the quality of the workforce and the competitiveness of the enterprises. Ines, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Shumë faleminderit. E nderuar zonja Sorensen, zëvendësministre e Ministrisë së Financave dhe Ekonomisë, zonja Hoffmann, përfaqësuese e ambasadës gjermane, drejtori i zyrës së KFV-s në Shqipëri, zoti Tis, zoti Voherman, përfaqësuesi i Fondit të Sfidës Rajonale, përfaqësuesi e programit GIZ në Shqipëri, drejtori i Swiss Contact në Shqipëri, zoti 𝗔𝗃, të nderuar sipërmarrës, të nderuar përfaqësues të shkollave profesionale. Është kënaqësi e veçantë për mua të përshëndes sot të gjithë ju që na vlerësoni me pjesëmarrjen tuaj në këtë event të lancimit kombëtar të Fondit të Sfidës Rajonale në 6 vendet e Ballkanit Perëndimor. Më lejoni që në emër të sipërmarrjes shqiptare të falenderoj qeverinë gjermane për këtë tjetër ndihmë të rëndësishme që ofron vendit tonë dhe vendeve të Ballkanit Perëndimor me anë të këtij projekti të nënshkruar midis Bankës së Zhvillimit KFV dhe Forumit të Investimeve 6 domeve të Ballkanit Perëndimor, një shoqat kjo e përbashkët e krijuar nga 6 dhomat kombëtare të tregtisë, ku bën pjesë edhe Bashkimi i Dhomave të Tregtisë dhe Industrisë së Shqipërisë. Pra sot unë jam njëkohësisht edhe përfaqësuese e Forumit të Investimeve të 6 domeve të Ballkanit Perëndimor, themeluar si edhe Renato në 2017, me qëllimin për të përcjellë zërin e më shumë se 350.000 sipërmarrjeve në rajon, për të krijuar një mjedis më të mirë të bërit biznes përmes bashkëpunimit rajonal dhe për të promovuar rajonin si një destinacion unik investimesh. Bashkimi Evropian ka nevojë për stabilitetin e Ballkanit Perëndimor, po aq shumë sa vetë Ballkani Perëndimor. Ne të gjithë ndajmë qëllimin e integrimit evropian dhe mënyra më e mirë për të ecur përpara është të përgatitemi për të në mënyrë aktive duke hapur ekonomitë tona dhe kufinë në një mënyrë të drejtë për drejtë, të frymëzuar nga parimet thelbësore të projektit evropian. Ne e shohim atë si një projekt të dyanshëm, me qëllimin e përbashkët, i cili është prosperiteti për Ballkanin Perëndimor, është prosperitet për Europën, dhe që përfshin nismën e 4 lirive dhe parimin gjithëpërfshirës të zgjerimit. Dhe pikërisht për sa paraqita, ky projekt që lançojmë sot merr një rëndësi të veçantë. Fondi i sfidave rajonale do të financojë për të rritur punësimin e të shkolluarve në arsimin profesional dhe në të njëjtën kohë do të rrisë produktivitetin dhe konkurrencën e ndërmarrjeve në Ballkanin Perëndimor. Sipërmarrjet shqiptare, produktet dhe shërbimet e tyre do të mund të rriten më shumë nëse do të kenë punëtor të kualifikuar dhe të aftë në profesionet e kërkuara. Ndërkohë që çdo ditë ne përballemi me shqetësimet e tyre për mungesën e fuqisë punëtore të aftë për punë. Bazuar në studime, rezulton se përfshirja e biznesit në praktikën profesionale në vendin tonë dhe në arsimin profesional, sipas të ashtu quajturit sistem dual apo skemave të nxënit nëpërmjet punës, rezulton të jetë minimale, si në formë, ashtu edhe në përmbajtje, si në sasi, ashtu edhe në cilësi. Ligji aktual nuk ka arritur të ofrojë fuqinë punëtore të kualifikuar që u përshtatet nevojave të bizneseve, dhe ne mendojmë se bizneset shqiptare, si dhe investimet e huaja, duhen mbështetur me politika dhe me legjislacionin e nevojshëm. Dhoma e tregtisë, bizneset, shkollat profesionale, qeveria dhe donatorët janë aktorët të cilët mund të sjellin ndryshimin në legjislacion, dhe pse jo, duke adoptuar modelin dual gjerman, një sistem i aplikuar edhe në vende të tjera, përfshirë dhe ato në rajon. Pikërisht, në këto element bazohet Fondi Sfidues Rajonal, i cili do të përkrajë iniciativa apo ide të një grupimi të bizneseve dhe një shkolle profesionale. Një bashkëpunim i tillë do të sillte përfitimin e bizneseve nga njëra anë, të cilët do të kontribuojnë në mënyrë aktive nëpërmjet trajnimit dhe eksperiencës profesionale, dhe kështu duke pranuar nxënës në ambientet e tyre do të kenë mundësinë që të kenë të punësuarit e tyre të ardhshëm, dhe nga ana tjetër do të sillte përfitim edhe për vetë nxënësit, të cilët do të përfitojnë njohuri dhe aftësi të reja nga të nxënësit në punë, të cilat kërkohen nga tregu i punës, dhe kjo do të mundsojnë që ata të dalin sa më të përgatitur duke u siguruar një mundësi punësimi. Ky projekt, duke patur dy aktorë, shkollat e arsimit profesional nga njëra anë dhe biznesin nga ana tjetër, ka si objektiv të rrisë cilësinë e përgjithshme të arsimit profesional dhe të harmonizojë atë me nevojat e tregjeve të punës në rajon dhe natyrisht edhe në Shqipëri. Të dashur miq, jam vërtet sot shumë e lumtur që Bashkimi i Dhomave të Tregtisë dhe Industrisë do të jetë aktor në këtë proces, dhe ne do të punojmë fort që të kemi sa më shumë përfshirje të sipërmarrjes shqiptare në përfitimet që ky projekt i rëndësishëm do të sjellë. Dhe në përfundim, do doja të falenderoj atyre nato për punën që ke kryer, bashkëpunimin që kemi pasur deri më tani, dhe jam e bindur që ky bashkëpunim do të rezultojë suksesshëm edhe në vijim. Faleminderit.
Thank you very much, and especially for emphasizing the importance of skilled labor force as a key to the economic growth. And indeed, in almost all countries, so far, I mean, we have discussed that also in other events, the companies often complain for shortage of skilled workers and the lack of appropriate vet systems that addresses the needs of the labor market. And we truly believe that by working together with you, RCF will narrow this gap. So far, we introduced the key institutions that stand behind the innovative idea of supporting vet education through financing the needs of vet providers, to invest in equipment and machinery, renovation and disinfection of premises, purchase of teaching materials, and upscaling the teaching capabilities through advisory support. The operational and financial management of the Regional Challenge Fund is delegated to an implementation consultant, a consortia of 4 international companies and institutions: IPC, Planco, Swiss Contact, 𝗥𝗲𝗴𝗏, who have a combined extensive experience with the professional management of large projects, including VET, and an extensive regional footprint with local presence.
I don't see my own video. So.
Okay. Sorry for the interruption. Who have a combined extensive experience with the professional management of large projects, including VET, and extensive regional footprint with local presence and large network within public and private sector. The fund management unit is the core operational entity of the fund, and we have here today with us Mr. Frieder Werman, the team leader, former CEO of 𝗥𝗲𝗴𝗏 Bank in Albania and other 𝗥𝗲𝗴𝗏 banks in the region, who will introduce us to the key concept of RCF. Frieder, I leave the word to you now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Renato. Dear panelists, dear participants, also a warm welcome from my side. I understand that the RCF has been awaited for quite some time in Albania. Also for us, it's a waiting time that that comes to an end now. We've been joking internally. The Challenge Fund has really been a challenge. First of all, in setting it up, and coming to the point of launching it, which we are now happy to have reached. Obviously, due to the pandemic situation, yeah, we have been postponing, reorganizing over the last year. So I'm now very happy to start, and also very happy to see so many participants taking an interest in our efforts and the fund. We have heard already quite a lot about the relevance of demand-driven VET provision, and I will go into a bit more detail with regard to organizational aspects and some of the key concepts and principles of the RCF. I would like to share for this purpose my screen, which I will do now, and I hope you can all see them, and run you through a couple of slides to illustrate our key principles. Is this visible now? Is it visible, Renato? Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Good. Yeah. Then, jumping into it, it has been mentioned. It is a region-wide competition that we are organizing in order to identify high quality and very promising VET projects in the area of cooperative training. So these two key elements: one side, the competition that should ensure high quality, and then the cooperative training approach is the key element of all the consortia that are going to apply. For us, the region-wide competition has a few challenges. First of all, is the equal access to information of all potential applicants and interested parties. We are operating completely online for the moment, and ensuring that this information is really equally distributed through these online events, the national events as we have it today. I've been running in all the other 5 countries, and there are more info sessions, tutorials, other events coming in order to ensure that everybody interested also has the possibility to obtain the information and ask questions where necessary. Here already maybe the hint to the website where we have the schedule of all activities, so everybody interested is invited to have a look there in order to note dates of info sessions and tutorials for according to their availability. Then of course we have the same eligibility and selection criteria across the region. That is something maybe obvious, but not that easy to implement, as the countries are quite different in terms of implementation of cooperative training or dual education elements. I think we have found a good balance there that ensures that indeed the competition is fair between the different countries. And it's good to hear that there's already a little bit of a competition at the KfW office levels. I hope this also continues. I know it continues also with the SIF teams. So I think we have a good momentum there, and hopefully this continues throughout the upcoming 4 years. We are running until 2025 at least, and there's plenty of time to to compete and also to be successful. As a key piece is as well the cooperation within the consortia. I think is one of the the core elements is indeed the cooperation between the private sector, the companies, and the vocational training institutes on the other side. And in this way, simply bring a good quality of training initiatives and training activities to the different countries. And then last but not least, but I think important to mention is that the selection process is relatively independent. It's also independent of the fund management unit. We have a pool of independent selection experts who in the end will look into the application proposals and take the decisions according to a certain score, the quality of the proposals submitted. Cooperative training, I think that is it's a wide topic. We'll not go much into it. Just to highlight once again the central significance of this concept for the applications and the proposals. So we will very much evaluate to what extent the different phases and different elements of cooperative training can be implemented in the proposed projects, from the joint identification of training needs to implementing it jointly between companies and ICE, the joint assessment of skills, and then ideally as well cooperating in placing trainees after the training has been completed in companies, consortia or outside of it. So this will be the main benchmark against which we are going to evaluate proposals. The question that we receive obviously very often is who can apply? What are the eligibility criteria? Again, there are detailed information on the website, and we will elaborate and deepen that discussion in the upcoming info events. Just as a first an overview here, what is required. The creation of consortia has already mentioned before, so we expect at least one VTI and 2 enterprises to form a consortia. Ideally, there are more enterprises because we think the cooperation will be more interesting and probably also more productive when there are more enterprises involved, but the minimum is 2. VTIs, vocational training institutes, have to be licensed by the authority or accredited by local authorities in the case of private VTIs. And then one key aspect as well is that the cooperative training program that the project is targeting needs to lead to a nationally recognized qualification. The tickets we're looking for range between 150,000 euros and 600,000 euros, which allows as well for investments in infrastructure, equipment, machinery. So to really make practical training possible at the training institutes. And then we have a minimum of training places to be created. That is one of efficiency output, so to say. We would like to see 30 training places created, and being aware that this is not always that straightforward, especially to create the training places at the companies. There's a possibility to split this over 2 years, so 15 training places in the first year, and then another 15 in the second year. If there are more, the more the better, clearly in this context. The measures supported by the RCF, I mentioned already workshop, infrastructure, rehabilitation, upgrading of the facilities, and the acquisition of equipment, machinery that supports practical training at the VTI. This will probably be, in terms of volume, the largest part of the investments, but then equally important is the possibility as well to obtain advisory support for the project to be implemented, can as well be financed by the RCF, and then obviously the teacher training for the courses that are being applied for in the proposals. Teacher training at the school, but as well the training of teachers in the companies in order to ensure that the work-based learning elements are implemented adequately. Quick look at the timeline. We have currently the expression of interest, or the phase for the expression of interest, is open. This will be until the end of April, relatively long period in order to give time to create the consortia, which we understand might be a challenge, and that's one of the key achievements and during this period, that indeed companies and BTIs come together and decide to submit an application at the later stage. We will support this process and provide additional information with the info sessions and tutorials until the end of April. Then take 1 month to assess the expressions of interest and come up with a shortlist where the most promising applicants from the 6 countries will be invited to submit full applications, including then the project proposal, which specifies in more detail how the cooperative training project shall be implemented, and as well which objectives and results expected to be achieved. This will be another 2 months for that. After that, we will take a month to evaluate the proposals and come hopefully up with a selection of good quality projects at the end of August. Then there's an additional phase of fine-tuning, negotiating certain elements of the project set up to be then finalized in the funding agreements. And we hope that by the end of September, funding agreements are signed, and then implementation projects means procurement in the first place and can start. I mentioned the info sessions and tutorials already. This is our way of providing information and accompanying potential applicants throughout this expression of interest phase. Info sessions are going to take place in order to address and as well to acquire and to raise the interest of potential applicants, where we discuss the eligibility criteria in more detail, talk about the deadlines once again, and also provide some information on the documents that are required for the expression of interest. Then the tutorials will be more hands-on, practical, and directly relating to the form that is required for the expression of interest. A remark here, the application process is completely online, so supported by an application portal for which we have the link as well on our website. The tutorials will answer questions completely with regard to how to fill expression of interest form, what documents to be submitted, uploaded, in order to not leave any questions in there. Currently, we have scheduled the following dates for our sessions. So in March now, we will have 2 info sessions, starting March 12th, and then 2 weeks later, the second one. And the tutorials will take place in April. In time, we hope that interested applicants will be able to then submit the expression of interest in due time. Once again, the reference to our webpage. There's also a lot of additional information available, certain documents, background information, as well with regard to cooperative training. So worth having a look there, and as well if of interest, follow us on the social media, where events will be announced again, and as well bits and pieces of information are provided. I think that's it from my side. Thank you very much, and Renato, back to you.
Thank you very much, Frieder, for the introduction of RCF and for guiding us through the funding principles and application and selection process. Thanks also, and this is very important, for mentioning the planned sessions that will take place in the upcoming weeks. And I also encourage all participants to have a look at our website and social media and save the dates for the upcoming sessions. We'll be answering, as mentioned in the beginning of this event, we'll try to answer the questions. I see them popping up now from the attendees. At the end of the webinar, I try to answer some of them, but to some of the questions, the answers are already in our web page. Are we going to have the Frieder's presentation sent to participants? I think that the content of that presentation is on the web page, and in there you find the eligibility criteria, application process, and everything needed at this stage of the project. As we are approaching now the end of this event, we still have 2 more speakers to go. GIZ has been working in Albania since the start of development cooperation on behalf of German Federal Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development. Since 2008, when GIZ opened its office in Tirana, the priority areas of work relate to the sustainable economic development, increasing the competitiveness of companies, improving the investment climate, and amending the economic legislation to the EU acquis, and foster as well vocational training. As part of this process, PROCEED program aims to improve the employment situation of the workforce and the self-employed, particularly of skilled youth and returnees on the Albanian labor market. And it has improved through interventions of the program on the supply of the appropriately qualified people from that sector. We have here with us today Dr. 𝗪𝗓𝗂𝗏, and you are invited to share with us the rationale and objective of the program, and also the challenges of structural relationship between the private and training providers. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Renato. Yes, finally, I was lucky to participate. In reality, I mean, I was here all the time, but it was not possible to connect my video and my audio to the webinar. And sorry again for the interruption when I was connected finally. So dear Dinah, dear colleagues and dear guests in this very important webinar, the launch of the Regional Challenge Fund. I'm very happy to be here with you and to briefly present our program PROCEED. As Renato already mentioned, we were active in the beginning mainly in the real vet sector, working with different vet schools, but shifted in 2017 more to vocational training centers, because our focus went on to supporting unemployed youth in Albania, returnees, as it has been mentioned, and therefore our focus shifted to these training centers of the National Employment Agency in Albania. We continued working with MFC CAMSA, and here I see also the very important link we have within German Development Cooperation, as 𝗪𝗪𝗏 and GIZ, both agencies, implementing agencies, are active in the vet sector, in the qualification sector in Albania. Of course, with the Regional Challenge Fund, 𝗪𝗪𝗏 is covering a broader area, the Western Balkan countries in the vet sector, which is really very good, but of course Albania is also included. I think it's important, and that has been mentioned several times, that the private sector will play such an important role in implementing the Regional Challenge Fund. It was also clear now with the eligibility criteria that private sector has to participate in the applications together with the vet providers. And from our experience in PROCEED, I can say that we have made very good experiences with the inclusion of the private sector into our program. We did it in two ways. On the one side, and the Ministry of Finance and Economy, including the 2 implementation agencies, NICE and NAVETU, are very well informed about this. We worked very closely together with private vet providers in order to broaden the offer for unemployed people, in order to show how it is also possible to work with private vet providers. And we are in the process now with the ministry to see how these providers can be included into the vet landscape in Albania on a more structured way. So this was one way where we included the private sector, but of course, PROCEED is a program which works on the demand side of the labor market, but also on the supply side. That means not only promoting vet providers, but also supporting MSMEs in getting the right supply for their companies, the skilled labor force. And in this way, we tried to introduce, I wouldn't say that it is a new concept, it's of course well known, the work-based learning into the curricula at the VTCs and also at the other vet providers. This means that the participants, the different participants in the courses, they're sent to companies, to private companies, in order to have their internship, at least 2, 3, 4 weeks, if not more, or it was even part of the curriculum. So this is not yet, of course, dual learning as we know it from Germany, but it's very close, and I think it helped the participants, but also the companies to get the right impression on whom they would like to employ, and also for the participants to know what they would like to do in the future. So I think these two possibilities to include the private sector will be also relevant for the Regional Challenge Fund. In order to mention briefly at the end, what are the plans of PROCEED in the future? We started to collaborate with the Ministry of Finance and Economy in the area of digitalization of vet providers. I mean, everybody knows how important this has been for the last year and will, of course, still be very relevant for the next years too. We started with an analysis which we published right in April last year, and the government has endorsed in the meanwhile a roadmap on digitalization in vet, and we are happy to contribute here to the implementation of this roadmap, which will be done now during the current year in current PROCEED, but will be also continued in the successor project of PROCEED, which we will call PROCEED 2.0, which hopefully will start then in January next year. So we will be still on the scene, supporting vet providers in Albania and happy to cooperate with other agencies and projects. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Kausch, for sharing your work and its impact in improving employment, and also the need of strengthening the cooperation between the private sector and vet providers. And we as well are looking forward to work with you to achieve our common goals for better vet education and more employed youngsters. Last but not least, we have here with us today Mr. Martin Dici, Country Director of Swiss Contact in Albania and Regional Director for Western Europe. Swiss Contact has been working in the vet sector in Albania for around 20 years now. In recent years, the focus has shifted to including the private sector more and more and considering their needs when upgrading the vocational training sector. Martin, the cooperation between schools and businesses is very important to making vocational training relevant to the labor market. Having in mind the activities your organization has been conducted around the region, how do you describe the private sector involvement in vocational education training and what are their benefits? Thank you.
Thank you, Renato. Good morning, dear colleagues, dear participants. Since it's already late, I'll try to be very quick. I would just like to point out those two things. Most of the previous speakers have already described the Challenge Fund and the importance of the private sector cooperation. And I think there's been a shift there, not just in the perception, but in the projects that we have been implementing in the vet sector, but in other sectors, as Dr. Kausch pointed out as well. And the involvement of the private sector is absolutely key to achieving that labor market relevance of vet. So the match-up there is necessary so that the businesses receive the students trained in a way as they need it. And in that sense, the Challenge Fund fits into the bigger picture of the German-speaking countries cooperation, Germany, Switzerland, and Austria, that has introduced these elements of the German-speaking countries' vet systems, and where the partnership between the schools and the businesses is absolutely key. And it also fits into the bigger picture of Albania's national skills on strategy and employment, where relying on the private sector is an important element of that national strategy. So the private sector's input also there is seen as a requirement for developing good curricula, for having the correct infrastructure, for having labs in schools that fit the needs of modern companies, for digital learning elements and all of those things that have been mentioned several times now by the previous speakers. So in that sense, I can only repeat Frieder's invitation that it is in everyone's interest that the companies and the schools participate together to make the most out of this opportunity that the Challenge Fund offers, and to really make the improvements that will help young people get better employment opportunities in Albania. Thank you.
Thank you, Martin, for your insights and for highlighting the role of the private sector in making quality vocational educational work. And also a big thank you for supporting us with the promotion of RCF. We really look forward to working with you and to make the best out of it. Thanks. Now there's still some time left to pick up some questions. Before I start answering them, I'd like to thank all the speakers for being with us here today, and we really look forward to a successful implementation of Regional Challenge Fund in Albania. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Could you please share the presentation of Mr. Verman with the participants? As I mentioned, the content of the presentation you'll find in the website, especially on what would be interested for the moment is the process of expression of interest, eligibility criteria, and the selection criteria. Does the following...
Let me just briefly come in here.
Yes.
Yes, there will be a better presentation and a more complete one if you come to our info session. So this was, of course, the information is right and everything's on the webpage, but I think it's worthwhile joining us there in 10 days, and that will be provide a better overview on the process than just these 5 points there.
Okay, do you expect to collaborate, there is another question, with consultancy companies with the aim to increase capacity building, but not only? If yes, will there be open calls for that? Thank you for the question. The open call, the call is for the expression of interest. As we announced now, and it's open since beginning of February. We won't have a call for business consultants. I'm afraid Frieder can correct me for that. But I mean, yes, consultants are welcome to work with the businesses and schools and to support them for the project proposals. This is what actually I couldn't answer during the webinar. What is the percentage of funding by Regional Challenge Fund? Okay, we have criteria for the matching contribution, which is set at 10%, and that has to be provided by the consortia. So the rest is being financed by Regional Challenge Fund, if that was a question. Or if you mean percentage of funding as an interest rate to the fund, it's worth to explain that this is a non-payable grant, so there is no interest to be paid on top of that. Okay, I will invite you all to the next session on questions and answers that we'll be addressing during the info session. And we stop it here for today. And thank you very much for being part of this event. Thank you.